The OU game, as I said, I don't think OU is going to win it, but if they keep it close, that'll be great for the conference. I just feel like if it is a close game on the road in front of that crowd, with Lincoln Riley kind of not being the guy that's been relied on to make these kind of clutch calls, these game situational play calls against one of the best coaches in college football, that's going to be tough for the Sooners. So if the game is close, I that's what we can hope for. As the Big 12, I think they hope for that game is close. As far as the other games like Baylor and UTSA, let me ask you, is UTSA better than Liberty?
I believe they're much better than Liberty. At least they have been in the past. They went to a bowl game last year, and we've talked in recent weeks about Arizona State and their upcoming matchup with Texas Tech. Texas San Antonio basically blew a game to Arizona State. They basically beat them, played better. This was just last season. They have played some pretty good football. They played some pretty good football last year against Texas A&M as well.
Yes, UTSA.
They're pretty good, yeah.
Yeah,
they have been in the past. I don't know about this year.
And they have a decent coach. So we can think that they're better than Liberty. I think that's pretty fair.
Yep.
And I saw Liberty beat Baylor, not just win the game, but they beat them. And what I mean by that is they deserved to win that game. It wasn't one they stole. So the fact that Baylor's a 17-point favorite, I don't understand. I don't think Baylor's any good. I think they're in real trouble as they kind of transition from the spread, the Art Briles system, to more of a pro style that Coach Matt Rule likes to run. They don't have a lot of depth. After the scandal, they had all the player attrition. So Baylor's in trouble. Baylor's in real trouble. And for the first time, I don't have Kansas State coming in 10th in this conference. So I hate that spread because it's going to make the Big 12 look really bad when they lose to a team they were favored by 17 points in. So hopefully Iowa State, TCU, those are the two games the Big 12 needs to win for sure.
Vegas usually knows what it's doing, but brand names and reputations do stay with teams and with programs. And of course, Baylor's been highly successful in recent years. People do tend to overreact. I don't think you're overreacting because this is Liberty beat Baylor. Football games are lengthy contests. They're not basketball games. And typically when a team wins, and you're giving me the same assessment that other people have, I didn't see any plays from that game, but that Liberty outclassed Baylor in that game. And for Baylor to turn around and be a 17-point favorite against a team that competes on a fairly regular basis against Power 5 teams and does reasonably well is a bit interesting. But we do tend to overreact to week one results. Yeah, I would trust your assessment across the board. Unfortunately, as well as I do in terms of the Big 12's perception, even if you win all of these games, even the TCU, Arkansas, and Iowa State games, even people that watch college football, many will put too much on Oklahoma, Ohio State, and that will be the one game that's going to drag in the rest of the conference.
Yes, and unfortunately that's true. And that's what's got to change because, on game day, we literally had the panel sit up there and tell people that when you're talking about the Florida State and the Alabama game, that whoever loses that game, it doesn't matter how many losses they have because they know that team is good. Then what are we going to do? I mean, why are we playing these games? If we already know who's good and who's not, then why are we playing the games? And I'm not saying that Florida State is bad. I'm just saying that the losses have to matter. And if OU loses to Ohio State, on Saturday, then that's going to matter for the Big 12, and the Big 12 will suffer for that. Fortunately, they'll have some games later on against Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Kansas State to change that perception, but that's still Big 12 on Big 12. I think if Oklahoma State can kind of take care of business against Pitt in 2 weeks and show that they're the class of the conference, that might be better for the Big 12 than OU winning the conference and having the Ohio State loss like we saw last year. I think if they can avoid that comparison, that would be better for the conference. So I go back to the Iowa State and TCU games. All the pressure for the Big 12 is on those two teams to win.
All right. And I know that you've got confidence in the Cyclones. I saw this spread and I thought it was a bit low for the Hawkeyes as a 3-point favorite on the road. But considering that the Hawkeyes do not have an explosive offense, Iowa State with Jacob Park at quarterback has shown us something, not just last week, but going back the final 5 or 6 games of last season. This sounds like a game that you really like and would like to see, and see the Cyclones complete the deal and beat their rival.
Yes, definitely. I think this is a game that they can definitely win. I feel like they're being undervalued a little bit right now because of who they've been in the past. But behind quarterback, Jacob Park with receiver Alan Lazard and Joel Lanning is playing really well at the linebacker position. That if their defense can shut down Iowa's run game, if they can at least slow it down some, they have an offense to capitalize. If they can play mistake free. Now, there are some issues. They're not world beaters. Iowa State's not going to contend for the Big 12 title, so they're not a perfect team. But if they can do those things, this is a very, very winnable game for them.
Oh, I think it's winnable for sure. I do think the Hawkeyes will win, and I think it shocked a number of people that who were predicting them to lose in game number 1 because they were playing what many consider to be the number 1 NFL pro prospect at quarterback in Josh Allen at Wyoming. They only gave up 3 points in a 24-3 win at home. So that was a rather impressive showing by the Hawkeyes, but they've got to travel to Iowa State. And as we discussed in the offseason, despite Iowa being a much more successful program from year to year, this series is much closer than a lot of people might think. It's like a 60-40 series in the last 10 or 15 years, not dominated by the Hawkeyes as you might think.
Yeah, it's a rivalry game, and anything can happen in this game.
TCU Arkansas, they played a really good game last year. I watched that game gun to gun at TCU. Arkansas won it at the end. It was a defensive struggle for like 3 quarters, and then it turned into a shootout. And it was a very, very entertaining game. They went to overtime. So Arkansas gets the return trip. The Hogs not supposed to be as good a football team as they've been the last couple of years, and the Horned Frogs are a 3.5-point favorite as a team that is dipped into the top 25 here with their week 1 victory. And so that should be an interesting one. And Big 12 and SEC go at it. A TCU team that could contend as a dark horse for the conference title. We will need to see a little bit more. Chris Ross from Land Grant Gauntlet joining us to talk Big 12 football, and we try to track him down just about as often as we possibly can. You got to join him on his podcast, Quick Slant, as well. Chris, we appreciate the discussion. Anything else we need to run down?
I think that'll about do it. We just need the Big 12 to get a couple of wins to save the reputation of the conference at this point. It cannot be a repeat of last year where they look horrible in the non-conference and then turn around and do really well in the bowl games, because as we saw going into this year, people kind of revert back to what happened in the non-conference and gloss over what happened in the bowl games. So the Big 12 week 2, very, very important for the conference.
All right, Chris, we'll catch you next time. I appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thank you.